You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
The comedic brilliance of Benny Hill may have earned him a place in the annals of British comedy, but beneath the laughter was a very lonely man. He never married, had no children, and died alone in his abandoned house. What happened to his fortune after his death? Join us as we uncover the sad details of Benny Hill's life, the mysteries behind Benny Hill's abandoned mansion. Benny Hill was known worldwide for his humor and goofy personality, but in reality, he was a quiet and introverted person who lived a humble life. Even though he made a lot of money from his TV shows, he stayed true to himself and never let fame go to his head. He led a surprisingly simple life considering his status as a famous celebrity. The way he lived, the way he kept his house, and even the places he avoided living in all reveal a side of him that is more fascinating than his on-screen antics. Throughout most of his life, Benny Hill made the choice to not buy property in London. Instead of investing in a fancy townhouse or a large estate, he opted to rent a simple apartment. For 26 years, he resided in a double-room flat at 2 Queen's Gate in Kensington. Although not luxurious, it was a practical living space. Following his departure from Kensington in the 1980s, Hill relocated to Fairwater House in Teddington, which was conveniently close to Teddington Studios, where he filmed much of his work. Despite having the financial means to afford a mansion, a personal driver, and fancy meals every night, Hill opted for something entirely different. His apartment in Teddington was not fancy at all. It was messy with old scripts on chairs, VHS tapes on the walls, and piles of unopened fan mail gathering dust in corners. It looked more like the home of a regular guy than a wealthy celebrity. The walls were empty, the furniture basic, and the vibe surprisingly peaceful. Guests often remarked on the strange mix of old technology, books, and worn-out clothes that he still wore. Hill's story became more interesting because of a rumored large, beautiful property, possibly a mansion, that he had bought but never lived in. Although it wasn't true, rumors still went viral. The rumored mansion became a focal point of local curiosity, symbolizing the man who did not seem interested in a lavish lifestyle. His refusal to change was puzzling to many because he seemed to be afraid of trying something new. He liked sticking to his usual habits and daily routine. He always bought cheap food, walked long distances instead of using taxis, and only rode in fancy cars if someone else was paying. Despite having a driver's license, he never bought a car. Benny Hill briefly stayed at 22 West Row Gardens in his hometown of Southampton, looking for a new place to live. However, he did not stay there for long. He was always careful and never made quick decisions. He preferred staying in places where he felt comfortable and in control. He chose not to spend money on unnecessary things because he wanted to, not because he had to. His parents taught him to be frugal, and he continued to live by those principles throughout his life. Despite becoming a millionaire from his TV career, he preferred to mend his clothes instead of buying new ones. He preferred a simple and uncomplicated lifestyle. But could his lonely and sad life be the reasons why he never had a wife? Let's dive into the details of why he never married when he was alive. The reasons Benny Hill never married. While Benny Hill brought joy to others, he kept his personal life private, especially when it came to his relationships and marriage. Many people were shocked that a man as well known and rich as Benny Hill never got married. He remained unmarried throughout his life, despite being constantly around women on his popular comedy show. He had asked women to marry him before. Even a colleague he asked multiple times, but he was turned down each time. These rejections had a deep impact on him, causing him to become more cautious in matters of love. His interactions with women were complex. People knew him to be timid and uncomfortable around women in everyday life. The confidence he portrayed on television was not genuine. While he may have acted as a playful flirt on screen, his true emotions were kept private. His kind demeanor, combined with a fear of getting hurt, likely led him to steer clear of emotional challenges. Benny Hill valued his privacy and preferred to keep his personal life private, especially his romantic relationships. He was secretive about his personal experiences, which led to speculation and rumors among people. Some believed he was hiding a secret relationship, while others thought he had difficulty forming close relationships. These rumors became more intense in the 1970s and 1980s, and his female co-stars, known as Hill's Angels, were thought to be more than just colleagues. However, nothing was ever confirmed about his personal life. People close to Benny sometimes suggested that he secretly pursued relationships with some of these women. It was unclear whether these were serious relationships or just infatuations. Benny might have been concerned that admitting to any relationship could hurt his career or the show's fun, carefree image. His main purpose was always to entertain, and he might have thought that keeping his personal life mysterious would help people focus on his comedy, not his personal life decisions. Benny Hill had hidden aspects to his personality that most people did not know about. While his comedy often poked fun at love games and misunderstandings between genders, his personal life reflected these same themes. He was a private person who lived modestly and did not seek out lavish things. It's possible that his emotional detachment stemmed from previous heartaches or a deep-seated fear of losing control. While Benny never confessed to having long-term relationships, he appeared happy with being single. According to friends, he was comfortable with his daily habits and did not want to disrupt things by making major changes. He preferred sticking to the same lifestyle he had maintained for years, renting a home instead of owning one, walking instead of driving, and keeping a small group of friends. This way of life brought him tranquility, but it might have also hindered his ability to form lasting connections. According to some of his colleagues, he was quite serious when not in the spotlight. He was very serious about his work and not open to different ideas. This caused tension to build up over time. He had disagreements with writers, directors, and actors in a subtle manner. Some female cast members felt uneasy at times, mentioning that Benny did not always separate acting from real life. Although no official complaints were filed, rumors about his behavior contributed to the curiosity surrounding his decision to never marry. He wanted control not just in the studio, but in other aspects of his life as well. Benny Hill preferred knowing what was coming next. He may have found romantic relationships too uncertain, as he preferred stability. It's possible that his dedication to his career left little room for anyone else. He put all his energy into his work, perhaps seeing it as his main focus rather than relationships with others. In his later years, as his show received more criticism and lower ratings, Benny became more distant. Some people thought he became resentful. He believed that critics did not understand him and were unfair in their judgments. He started avoiding social gatherings and only kept in touch with a few individuals. There were whispers that he held grudges against certain co-stars whom he felt outshined him. Not everyone knew this about Benny Hill, but many of his co-workers respected him for being professional, having good timing, and being kind on set. Some thought he was difficult, while others thought he was warm and generous. These varying views showed the different sides of a man who made people laugh while dealing with his emotional struggles. Even if he never married and his life was filled with heartbreak and loneliness, did he at least have an heir to all of his wealth? The mystery of his private life, a lonely life with no heirs. Hill was different from most other famous people because he did not talk much about his personal life. He did not often mention his family and never showed his partner or kids to the public. Those who worked closely with him thought he was nice but kept his distance. He would entertain audiences with enthusiasm and humor on stage, but once the cameras were off, he would withdraw into his space. No one saw Hill with a girlfriend, and there were no stories about a secret wife or child. People who knew him said he liked to be by himself and did not let many people get close to him. This was very different from the happy and sociable character he portrayed on TV. As time passed, the difference between his public and private life became even more noticeable. In 1992, when Benny Hill passed away, the details of his personal life became more apparent. He did not leave a will, have a spouse, or any children to inherit his wealth. Since there were no direct descendants, his fortune was inherited by distant relatives, some of whom he may not have been close to. It was surprising for many to discover that despite bringing joy to others, Benny Hill had lived much of his life without a partner. The famous person's home, where he lived by himself, was humble and peaceful, not what people would typically expect. It was a reflection of the man known for making people laugh, someone who might have been reserved and hesitant to let others in. As fans reminisced about his funniest moments, they also started to realize the inner loneliness he kept hidden. Decline and final years in seclusion. As Benny Hill's life was coming to an end, the happiness and success he had once been known for started to diminish. The joy and energy from his TV career started to fade, leaving him with a more subdued lifestyle. The man who had brought laughter to many people was now living a peaceful and solitary life. After being a major star on British TV for many years, Hill suffered a setback in 1989 when Thames Television, which had always carried his show, decided to cancel it. The cancellation was surprising not only to Hill's fans, but to Hill himself. Once praised for being innovative, his humor now seemed old-fashioned to some critics. Feminists and changing cultural norms were starting to criticize his brand of comedy. With the show's ratings dropping and public opinion turning against him, the network quietly ended its association with the famous comedian. This professional setback had a big impact on Hill emotionally. People close to him observed that the choice hurt his pride and morale. He had dedicated many years of hard work to the show and viewed it as more than just a job, but as a part of himself. After it ended, Hill felt like he lost a piece of who he was. The cancellation signaled the start of a more isolated time in his life. Around the same time, his health started getting worse. He had heart issues and then kidney failure, which made it hard for him to be active. Even though the doctors recommended heart bypass surgery, he declined to have the procedure shortly before he passed away. It's unclear if he refused out of fear, denial, or a desire to avoid more pain. What is certain is that his body was declining, and he decided to confront the end in his way. In his later years, Hill preferred to stay at home most of the time. He seldom went out and distanced himself from many of his old friends. Some of his longtime colleagues hardly heard from him again. He mainly relied on television for companionship in his silent apartment. The sounds of the screen replaced the laughter that once filled the air. He kept his curtains closed, his phone off, and his door locked. Many people are curious about why he decided to go down this particular route. Some think that his decision to isolate himself was due to experiencing intense emotional pain, which led him to shield himself from more heartache following romantic letdowns. Others believe it was because of his introverted personality and a wish to get away from the stresses of fame. Some feel that he was just fed up with being constantly in the public eye and found solace in solitude. Regardless of the motive, his preference for privacy only heightened the mystery surrounding his personal life. Despite making a lot of money in his career, Hill lived a simple life without many expensive things. He did not have fancy possessions or spend a lot of money on luxuries. When friends came to his house, they saw that he had basic furniture and ate plain meals. He did not buy expensive cars or host big parties. It wasn't until he died that people found out he had saved up a lot of money. Many people were surprised by his modest lifestyle because they had expected someone so successful to live in a more extravagant way. Some thought his thriftiness was a result of his modest childhood. Being raised with little money may have influenced his views on finances, causing him to be careful with spending even when he did not have to be concerned. Some speculated that his caution stemmed from a fear of the unknown, acting as a source of stability in a life where fame could be fleeting. Others believed it showed how unimportant material possessions were to him in the grand scheme of things. As time passed, Hill's social circle shrank. He did not have family close by, a romantic partner, or many close friends, so he spent much of his later years alone. After years of struggles with health, loneliness, and depression, Hill passed on in the worst way anyone could imagine: a quiet death in a lonely flat. On April 20th, 1992, people were shocked to hear that Benny Hill had died. He was a popular British comedian who brought laughter to many. He was found dead in his small apartment in Teddington, with the TV still on. It was even more sad because he had been alone for 2 days before being found. It was ironic that such a beloved comedian passed away in silence, without anyone there for him. On April 18, 1992, Benny Hill passed away while sitting in his armchair watching TV. His body was found on April 20 after his friends got worried and called the authorities when he did not pick up their calls. He died from a heart condition called coronary thrombosis. His death quickly became widely known, causing a sense of sadness and grief throughout Britain. People were not only saddened by his passing, but also by the circumstances surrounding it. He died alone, quietly, without any goodbyes or final words. There was no opportunity for him to say goodbye, as he passed away without anyone by his side. The only companionship he had in his final moments was the television screen, in the silence of an empty room. Hill died without any children, spouse, or close friends to be with him in his final days. He always kept his personal life private, but his lonely death made people more curious about the mystery he left behind. Despite being very famous and rich, he preferred a solitary life. When his assets were reviewed, it was found that he had a net worth of about £7.5 million. In today's money, that would be almost £20 million. However, there was no one to directly inherit this fortune. His will, written 30 years ago, stated that his parents would receive his wealth, but they had already passed away long ago. In the end, his 7 nieces and nephews shared his fortune. They received the inheritance of a man who kept his wealth private, lived a modest life despite making a lot of money, and had withdrawn from society before he died. The mystery surrounding his finances matched the low-key way he spent his final years. He never showed off his riches or surrounded himself with fancy things, even though he was very wealthy. His life stayed simple and quiet. Only a few months after being buried in Hollybrook Cemetery, which is close to where he was born in Southampton, something unsettling happened that added another twist to the tale. On October 4th, 1992, thieves entered Hill's grave because they believed a false rumor that he had been buried with gold and precious jewelry. They forcefully opened the coffin, but it was empty of any treasures. To deter any more disruptions, the coffin was buried again, this time under a heavy concrete slab. Despite all of these sad experiences, Benny Hill had the best career any star could wish for, which was totally the opposite of his personal life. The global reign of Benny Hill, Alfred Hawthorne Hill, also known as Benny Hill, was more than just a comedian. He was a major figure. Born on January 21, 1924, in Southampton, Hampshire, Benny came from a family with a strong tradition of humor. Both his father and grandfather were circus clowns, and Benny definitely inherited their mischievous spirit. After finishing school, Benny worked various jobs, including being a milkman and a Woolworths employee. During World War II, he served in the British Army as a mechanic and later joined the Combined Services Entertainment Division, where he discovered his passion for performing. The global reign of Benny Hill, Alfred Hawthorne Hill, also known as Benny Hill, was more than just a comedian. He was a major figure. Born on January 21, 1924, in Southampton, Hampshire, Benny came from a family with a strong tradition of humor. Both his father and grandfather were circus clowns, and Benny definitely inherited their mischievous spirit. After finishing school, Benny worked various jobs, including being a milkman and a Woolworths employee. During World War II, he served in the British Army as a mechanic and later joined the Combined Services Entertainment Division, where he discovered his passion for performing. Benny's showbiz career was inspired by the energetic performers of the British music hall scene. He took the last name Benny in tribute to American comedian Jack Benny. He started off with radio appearances and small theater roles. His first TV appearance was in 1949. In the early 1960s, he starred in his sitcom called Benny Hill and also lent his voice to characters on the radio show Benny Hill Time. He also acted in movies like Whodunit, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and The Italian Job. But he was best known for his TV comedy. Benny's world was transformed in 1955 when The Benny Hill Show premiered. After moving to Thames Television in 1969, the show really hit its stride. It quickly became popular for its unique mix of slapstick, parody, music, and silent comedy. Unlike usual sitcoms, the show presented a variety of sketches, giving Benny the chance to portray different characters and do impressions. One of the well-known characters was Fred Scuttle, a clumsy and opinionated everyman who the audience loved. The type of comedy that Benny Hill was known for was unique and focused on visual humor, with a lot of physical jokes, over-the-top characters, and famous chase scenes accompanied by the song Yakety Sax. In these skits, Benny would often be chased by a diverse group of characters like police officers, elderly women, and dancers, resulting in chaotic and cartoonish situations that viewers found entertaining. These scenes were filmed with fast-paced camera effects to make them even more ridiculous and funny. However, Benny Hill was not just popular in Britain. His comedy show was successful in over 140 countries, transcending differences in language and culture. His humor, which included slapstick and visual gags, appealed to people everywhere. Fans from places like Brazil and Japan were able to enjoy his jokes, finding amusement in the simplicity of his comedy and playful attitude. Despite being broadcasted in distant locations, Benny Hill's image became recognizable, with his mischievous smile appearing on television screens and magazines worldwide. By the mid-1970s, Benny Hill had become more than just a comedian. He was a worldwide sensation. In 1977, his show attracted an amazing 21.1 million viewers in the UK, a number that few shows have been able to match since then. His unique brand of humor earned him several awards, including the prestigious BAFTA Award and the Golden Rose of Montreux. His hit song, Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West, in 1971, along with other funny recordings, contributed to his success. His show was often the top-selling program for Thames Television internationally, generating millions in revenue. Benny was special because he was the main creative person behind his show. He acted in many roles, wrote the sketches, and planned out much of the action. The music he chose, like the famous Yakety sax, also reflected his funny style. Benny built a world that was silly yet relatable, with silly characters, clever schemers, and lots of confusion. In the 1980s, Hill's Angels were introduced as a group of attractive female dancers who brought excitement to the musical and funny parts of the show. Supporting actors like Jackie Wright, Bob Todd, and Sue Upton became well-liked on the show, creating a comfortable and familiar vibe. Jackie Wright especially was a popular character, often getting playfully smacked by Benny Hill. These repeating characters helped establish the show's personality, making it a beloved show for many people all over the world. However, over time, some critics started expressing worries. In the late 1980s, comedy preferences were shifting as alternative comedy gained popularity. Benny Hill's outdated humor and use of scantily clad women were no longer seen as appropriate by many. There were concerns from the media and fellow comedians about whether Benny's style of comedy was still relevant in modern times. More viewers stopped watching the show, and production costs increased. Thames Television, the TV company, made a significant choice. The Benny Hill Show was canceled in 1989 after being on the air for 34 years. This decision signified the end of a period for Benny Hill, whose comedy was once popular but no longer resonated with audiences. Fans were surprised by the decision, especially since the show continued to be popular in other countries. Benny's sketches were still being shown globally, and there was a strong demand for old episodes. Even though the show was canceled, Benny did not disappear completely. In 1991, he tried to make a comeback with a new show in New York, working with some of his old partners. This ended up being his last time performing on television. Benny Hill died in April 1992, just as he received a new contract offer from Central Independent Television to make new shows. He had declined offers from other networks, hoping for a final comeback. Unfortunately, the chance came too late. Even though Benny Hill's career ended without much fanfare, his impact lives on. Comedians from different eras have been inspired by his comedic style. Rowan Atkinson, famous for his role as Mr. Bean, has credited Benny Hill as a significant influence. Benny Hill's emphasis on visual humor, timing, and silent comedy laid the groundwork for shows that prioritize facial expressions over dialogue. His comedy sketches are still shared online, and his famous chase scenes are still recognized and referenced in popular culture even years later. Legacy and influence of an icon. Benny Hill is a name that still makes many people happy. For years, he was known for his funny jokes, skits, and comedy that was popular worldwide. His mix of physical comedy, sarcasm, and suggestive jokes made him famous around the world. But despite his success, he was a quiet and lonely person who preferred to be alone in his later years. The difference between Benny Hill's public image and his private life is a key aspect of his story. During his time on television, Hill was popular among audiences, but in his personal life, he became more and more isolated. Despite being loved by many, he remained single, did not have any kids, and mostly stayed away from the public. When he died in 1992, his fans were surprised to learn he had been alone in his apartment for days before being found. This made people think about how someone who brought so much laughter could end his life in such solitude. The debate over Benny Hill's legacy is both emotional and complex because of the conflicting opinions about his humor. Some believe his comedic style is outdated and inappropriate, with risque material and chase scenes involving women. Others view him as a talented artist who innovated timing, visual comedy, and wordplay. His carefully crafted characters, like bumbling waiters and overconfident buffoons, charmed audiences with their precision and ability to convey meaning without words. Despite changes in modern comedy, his impact is still evident. Today, sketch comedy, whether it be quick wit, strong character portrayals, or exaggerated scenarios, still shows influence from Hill's work. TV shows like Little Britain and The Catherine Tate Show have similarities to the style he made famous. His influence even reached the United States, where late-night host Johnny Carson and his co-host Ed McMahon were fans. They regularly invited Hill to be a guest on The Tonight Show, though he never took up the offer. Other fans of Benny Hill include radio personality Adam Carolla, who paid tribute to him on The Man Show by performing sketches similar to Hill's iconic style. Michael Jackson also publicly expressed his admiration for Hill during a 1970s tour. In 1987, the band Genesis featured Hill in a music video where he portrayed his famous character, Fred Scuttle, in a comedic scene. Even in later years, artists like Snoop Dogg and Busta Rhymes have praised Hill's work, showing that his humor has resonated with audiences around the world, not just in Britain. In 2006, Channel 4 showed a documentary called Is Benny Hill Still Funny? To see if younger people who do not know his style would find his comedy entertaining. A group of young adults who are used to watching more modern British shows like Little Britain and Borat watched some of Hill's sketches. They liked it and found his quick timing, clever visual jokes, and expressive acting funny. This shows that even though comedy changes over time, good timing and smart visual humor will always be funny. In 2021, Hill returned to TV on a channel called That's TV, which reaches the whole UK. The Benny Hill Show was broadcast on Christmas, the first time it had been shown nationally in almost 20 years. This showed that even though people may disagree on its content, Benny Hill's comedy was still popular and entertaining. In the later years of his life, Benny Hill gained praise and recognition from famous entertainers like Burt Reynolds, Michael Caine, Mickey Rooney, and Walter Cronkite. Even Anthony Burgess, a skilled writer, admired Hill's humor and clever use of language. The admiration from such a diverse group of artists showed that despite what critics may have said, Benny Hill had made a lasting impact. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.